Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the November My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. I am using these very pretty 49 and Market papers and embellishments to make this layout. I wanted to make a mixed media background, so I'm using a piece of thick white cardstock. I've already coated it with some white gesso. I'm going to have a strip of paper and my photos on the right hand side of the layout, and I'm going to be putting some sprays to the left of where the strip of paper is going, and then I'm also going to have some mixed media in the lower left hand corner. I used a number of different shades of green for the mixed media background. I used two Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists. The colors are Golden Olive and Forest Deep. I also used a Lindy's Starburst spray called Cathedral Pines Green. While I was making this layout, I was away at a scrapbook retreat, and I was really happy that I remembered to bring a couple of different colors of green to create this background. After I applied the spray using the packaging technique, I used my Tim Holtz sprayer and I sprinkled a little bit of water on the background. I did it a couple of times, and then I rolled my paper towel over the top, and that creates a really cool water droplet effect that I absolutely love. Now I'm adding the second shade of green. I believe that this color is Forest Deep and the first one was Golden Olive, but I'm not 100% sure. But I did want to layer a darker color on top of a lighter color. And although I put a lot of the darker color down, I didn't put it in all of the spots because I wanted some of the lighter color to show through as well. It looks like the whole background is going to be covered in green, but in the end, you just see a little bit of the mixed media peeking out from where the florals are and also from around the photo cluster. I put another layer of those droplets on because I added another layer of color. I wanted to make sure that all of the areas of green had this cool effect on them. There was a little bit too much splattering between the two areas of color, so I used some water and a paper towel to help clean those up. And then I began adding some darker splatters to both of those areas where I put down the green color. I love adding splatters. I think it adds such a cool look to the background, and I usually try to concentrate my splatters along the edge of the areas of color. I think that it helps to transition the areas of color into the background. Because I was away on a retreat and working on scrapbooking for so many hours, I felt like this really helped me with creating layouts for this collection. Sometimes when I'm scrapbooking for a really long time, I need to take a break, but this particular retreat, I didn't feel that way at all, and it really inspired me, and I kept working, and I was able to actually make way more layouts than I thought I was going to be able to, just because I got into a flow. The only interruptions to scrapbooking on this retreat are meals and an occasional game, which I actually like because it's fun to play and you can also win some prizes. So I enjoy that as well. But I was able to get a lot of layouts done in a short amount of time. I added a lot of splatters. I also used some baby wipes and I cleaned up the area between the two areas of color. I just kept getting a lot of splatters in there, and even though I don't mind having some splatters, I just thought it was a little bit more than I wanted to have. After I cleaned up some of the splatters, I went back in and added a few more because I didn't want there to be a straight line where I dragged the baby wipes, so I added a couple more splatters to make the edge look like it was a little bit irregular. So I was finally happy with the balance that I had between the splatters and the white background. I also wanted to add some gold splatters, so I'm using a Shimmerz Color Splash spray, and the name of it is Back in the Saddle. I didn't add too much gold, but I like that little bit of it that is visible in the final layout. So I have my strip of pattern paper that I'm putting along the right-hand side with a strip of photos. And I use some Distress ink in Vintage Photo to ink the edges of my piece of pattern paper. But before I am done with my background, I wanted to add some modeling paste through the stencil from this month's kit. I'm mainly putting the modeling paste on the area where I have the green color, although I do extend the modeling paste out just a little bit. Where the modeling paste overlaps the sprays, it often will absorb some of the color, and I really like the way that that looks. I don't know if that would happen if I perhaps waited till the next day and the paint was fully dry, but I never seem to do that. But I do like that effect. And then the area that I extend past the color, that generally stays white, and I think that it creates a cool effect. After the modeling paste was dry, I made sure it was fully dry, I added a little bit of stamping. This is a script stamp. I'm using some archival Staz On Ink in jet black, and I just add a little bit of stamping with the script stamp. And then I also add some dots using this Stampin' Up stamp. The other stamp that is a script stamp, that's been in my stash a long time. I don't know what the manufacturer of that stamp is, but those script stamps, I think they're very popular, and I really like the effect. I use that stamp quite often. Now I'm layering my pattern paper on top of the mixed media. I use a good amount of adhesive because sometimes the adhesive doesn't stick so well to the areas that have mixed media on it. I lined up my pattern paper, I pressed it down, and then I'm going to use this strip of photos that I have of my younger daughter, Julia, and place it on an angle on the right-hand side. I had this piece of Hallmark paper. This was a page for a Hallmark album, but I haven't used those in many years. But it's good quality paper, so I thought that I would use that to mat my photos. These are some of the pieces that I'm going to include on the layout. The large poinsettia that was fussy cut out of the same piece of pattern paper that the piece that I have on the right-hand side of the layout is cut from. And actually all of these pieces were fussy cut from that same piece of paper. There are a lot of florals on this piece of pattern paper, and because I cut them out, I am going to be kind of reassembling them in the lower right-hand corner, and I am later on going to add a few more die-cut pieces that are from the kit. I'm inking the edges of them with some of the Distress ink in black soot. Now I'm bringing my layout back in again. I attach down that strip of photos to the right-hand side. And now I'm going to begin assembling all the florals in the lower left-hand corner. And you could see that there is really not a huge amount of that mixed media showing on the left-hand side of that photo strip. I think that it's just the right amount. I do put a lot more mixed media down than what ends up showing up, but that's just kind of the way that it goes with the mixed media scrapbooking. And the same thing is true in the lower left-hand corner. I think that the amount of mixed media that does end up showing, though, really makes a difference in the layout. When I fussy cut out the florals from the pattern paper, I cut out every last piece, and I'm making use of every one of them. These photos of my daughter Julia were taken in 2019, the Christmas right before the pandemic, and it was a really nice Christmas. I remember that my daughter Julia got her hair cut and the hairdresser really messed up her hair, so her hair was much shorter than she usually wears it, and here it's kind of growing back in. I think it actually looks really nice that length. I love it all the different ways that she wears it, but it was something a little different, and I don't think I'll ever see her hair that short again, or maybe not in the near future anyway. I think many of us can identify with getting that disastrous haircut at least once in our lives that caused us to have to kind of redo our hairstyle. I wanted to add some photo corners, so I used some of the pattern paper and then I punched out some photo corners using my EK Success punch. In the November kit, we got lots of rub-ons to use as titles, so I am going to call this layout Dear Santa. I thought that these letters were the perfect size and that I liked the way they were black. I thought that went really well with the layout. I always cut the rub-ons that I'm going to use out of the larger sheet and I leave the backing on them, and then I make sure that they're straight before rubbing them down. In order to make sure that the word Santa was straight, I used my T-square and I drew a pencil line, which I'm lightening up a little bit here because I don't want it to be visible, or at least too visible, once I apply the title. I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to place the word Santa underneath the word deer. I finally decided that I was going to try to center it underneath the word deer rather than lining it up on one side. And then when I was absolutely sure I liked where it was, and I believe that I consulted with some of the other scrapbookers at my table, I pulled the piece on the back off and I used the tool that we received in the kit to rub it down. And then I used that tool again to rub it down a little bit more. I just want to make sure that every last bit makes its way onto the page. These rub-ons not only have letters, but they also have some cool effects mixed in there. If you look carefully, it looks like there are green and red splatters, in addition to there being a lot of florals. Because I'm calling this layout Dear Santa, I thought it made sense to include a few embellishments that were related to Santa Claus. So I cut this image of Santa Claus out of a tag. I thought that this was a really cute image and I liked the size. And then there were some mailboxes that say letters to Santa on them. So I thought that would be a cute addition as well. I also wanted to add some more holly leaves. There were so many florals in this kit, and I use florals so often on my layouts. I use a lot of them, and I still didn't use up all of the leaves and flowers and branches that were in this kit. There were a lot of them. So I added some more stems that had berries on them to the poinsettia cluster on the bottom left. And then I added the mailbox to the left of the photos, and I used a little bit of holly underneath and next to the mailbox. I also put some holly leaves on each of the photo corners. And then I decided to put Santa in the lower right-hand corner. And because the bottom is just cut straight across, I thought it would look nice to add a few leaves underneath him to camouflage that straight line that goes across the bottom, and then also to make the Santa match in with all of the other areas on the layout. I have all of the embellishments placed where I want them, so I use some adhesive and I attach them down to the layout. I added one more holly leaf to the cluster of leaves around the mailbox, and then I thought it would look nice to have just a couple of small poinsettias on top of the title. And that is the very last touch that I add to this layout. This layout is complete, and here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for taking your valuable time out of your day to watch this video. I really hope that you enjoyed watching it. I really enjoyed working with this kit. I just love Christmas layouts. Please take a look in the description box where you'll find a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website and also to their social media. You can check out all of the other layouts that the design team made with this kit and all of the other My Creative Scrapbook kits. As always, I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.